about CE5 and extraterrestrial contact, download my new book, now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, and 14 other platforms. Book authored by Donald Ledesma. CE5, Frequencies of Contact.
Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Desma, and welcome to today's show. Yeah, it's going to be an excellent one, that's for sure. You know, it's, I've been so busy, man. I always say this all the time, but I've been so busy that it's not like I didn't want to give you a podcast. I do want to give you a podcast. I want to give you a lot of podcasts, but you know, it's just, I get so busy, and unfortunately, I don't get to do as many as I want to, and I do have some guests that are waiting on me, actually. So I do have Melanie Bright that will be coming on the show here pretty soon, here maybe in a week or so. And she'll be, they're from ET Connections. I don't know if you remember them. When I first started my podcast, way back in 2019, I had them on as a guest. They were one of probably maybe 20, somewhere on there. So very, very nice, humble people. And I had them on the show, and they have some new stuff come out. So I'll be getting her on the show here pretty soon, probably next week. We were trying to plan a good time to do it, but it just seems to be very conflicting schedules, man. That's just the way it is. But if you're new to ufology, welcome to ufology and welcome to Alien Strand Podcast. Yes, where you can learn about ufology, learn about UFOs, Bigfoot, how the UFOs fly, you know, everything there is to know, right? And we teach you a lot of about ufology. We do some ghosts, paranormal stuff every once in a while. We do Bigfoot. That's my favorite guy that I like to talk about. You know, every time I do a Bigfoot podcast, it seems to do very well. So I think I'm going to be doing a couple of Bigfoot, a couple of, you know, creatures podcasts that'll be coming here pretty soon. And I do have more guests coming up. I have another gentleman that'll be coming in after Mrs. Melanie Bright. He'll be coming on. He's got a book, some personal experiences that he had, excuse me, himself with extraterrestrials. He's got some stories, and he wrote a book about it. And, you know, there's just things that had happened to him in the past, you know. And what good way to listen to Alien Strand Podcast is through our audio platform. So catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, you know, CastBox, Alexa, Amazon, iTunes, or everywhere. Catch us on every single one of those platforms if you can. You know, that's just look for Alien Strand, search for Alien Strand, and you'll find us there. And that's the best place to go look for Alien Strand, even on iHeartRadio. Man, I love iHeartRadio, you know, because there's so much there. And you get to listen to so much different kind of music, podcasts, everything that's on there. Download that app and put Alien Strand Podcast as one of your favorites. And we really appreciate that. And if you have Spotify, and if you are a Prime member of Spotify, you can actually comment, you know, add some stuff on there. And if you like Alien Strand, give me a thumbs up on there. Rate us. If it asks you if you can rate Alien Strand, hey man, give us a lot of stars across there. That will help this podcast grow and go into different directions. I really appreciate that from anybody, wherever you're listening from Spreaker to Castbox to Amazon Music to Alexa, everything. You'll give us a nice review and a nice thumbs up and the stars all the way across, and it'll help us go a long way. Now, don't forget, you can now actually catch us on Patreon as well. Yes, you can catch us on Patreon. Join for free. This podcast audio automatically goes into Patreon, but I do special podcasts just for Patreon members. If you are a paid member, you get to download some books that are just for paid people, some declassified information. Of course, I am going to be putting all the declassified information that came in here recently from UFO.gov. I will be adding it to our website there on Patreon. Go look for Alien Strand Extras there on Patreon. Join for free, or you can be a $5 a month, and I'm going to have some goodies. Yes, I am. Remember I told you guys I was going to get some t-shirts. I'm having them made as we speak. They're going to be beautiful, man, with the new logo and everything. I will have some long sleeve. I will have some short sleeve, and, I'm going to be giving those away to a few lucky people that will join Alien Strand to be a paid member, right? And I'll give you one of those if you become a paid member. And believe me, it's going to be a really nice shirt. I really enjoy that. I mean, the way it's coming out, we're doing a really good job on just getting that out there. But how the best way to represent Alien Strand, wear a t-shirt, and I'm going to give you that if you join for the $5 a month. To certain people, I'm just going to throw you a lucky winner today, and I'm going to send you one for free. All right, so join us for Patreon. You get some goodies there too, all right? And you can be a free member too. You're a free member, you get to hear everything and see everything that's on the video podcast. Of course, I do those on Thursdays. Haven't been doing it for the past month because I'm backed up. But I will jump back on those video podcasts. I've been saving a lot of content. I got a lot of video content, believe me, and different videos and topics to talk about, right? And it's kind of weird, kind of strange that every time I bring up a topic, I bring up a topic on whatever it is, whatever the topic is, it seems to get floated around, and you start seeing it pop up everywhere on my Facebook. Different podcasts start doing it. I know a lot of them don't want to say, but they do actually follow my lead in a sense, to give the information, because a lot of these new podcasters are coming out. They're great podcasters, man. They have great shows, great content, and they're still going on the old stories that are back there that they think that people haven't heard. And of course, you probably haven't, or maybe they have a better way of saying it. Hey, go for it. Go listen to them as well. But the content changes as we go on, especially with all the disclosure, or the UFO disclosure that's been going on, and they're releasing everything out there that they can. They have never done that before. Ever. Right? Since the Roswell crash of 1947, right? Nothing has gotten released or declassified. Very, very little stuff. Now, all of a sudden, they opened the floodgates and they started releasing everything. Why? Right? And that's the question that we've been asking. That's for another podcast. But still, I still like to talk about it, right? What do you think? What do you think that they're going to be doing, right? Or why they're doing it this way, right? All kinds of stuff came out. And as soon as they talked about it, they were like, they got all these preachers and people in the Christian faith communities and everybody that's in religion, that they went to tell them, hey, you better tell your people it's going to change. It's going to change everybody. Well, no, I don't know. It just depends on your mentality and if you're open-minded, right? Because you really, really have to be open-minded to listen to or watch or even search for ufology, extraterrestrials, anything like that, right? Because if you're following it, that means you're interested in it. Doesn't mean that you have to change your faith. No, I still have my faith. I have it 100%, right? But what I do here on Alien Strand, I give you the evidence, and then it's up to you to decide from there on what you want to do with it, right? If you want to believe it, don't do, or keep going forward, right? And I'm not here to preach anything to you guys. I'm just giving you the information as I get it. And that way, if you guys don't have a chance to research it, you're hearing it here first on Alien Strand Podcast. So, hey, there's my opening monologue for you guys, for just listening and staying loyal to Alien Strand. Please give me some thumbs up, subscribe, everything that we have on YouTube, everything that's out there, even on this podcast. Give me a thumbs up, man, if you can, if you really enjoy the content. Now, today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the human DNA, the human origins, actually the origins of human beings and the consciousness that follows, right? So tonight we're going to be exploring the humanity's oldest and deepest mysteries, right? So what is it? Who are we, right? Or what are we really in reality? And what is the human spirit? You always hear people talk about the human spirit. You have a spirit in you, or even if you're in religious things, you have a spiritual. Even like regular chakras are spiritual as well, right? So is consciousness an electrical, is it some sort of electrical activity, right, that happens inside our brain? Well, of course it is, right? It's something fired up from the day that you were conceived, right? Something fired up. There's been video of it. I've seen it. As soon as the conception of the egg and the sperm hits the egg, there's one split millionth of a second that you see that egg light up. It actually lights up, right? Like it's something electrical, almost like turning on a bulb, but at a split second. And that does happen at conception because we've seen it, right? I've seen it. Scientists already broke it down. They know that happens. So is that electrical? Maybe it's possibly, right? So, and then, or is there something more that happens, or is it something eternal that exists beyond your body, right? So that's something different to think about in that sense, right? And, are we, even after we're gone, will we travel from the moment of birth to the moment of death, right? In other words, will you see all that when you pass, right? I don't know. Maybe people have said that they have, and the people that have had NDEs, near-death experiences, they've seen things like that, and they've come back, and they tell stories, and they see loved ones from the other side, right? And that is part of the human spirit that still lives within you even after death, right? So when we examine the human DNA, right, it just has a lot of elements that makes up our whole bodies, right? Even the ancient Sumerian texts, they have passages, even in the book of Enoch, there's stories about, what happens to consciousness, after you die, physical death, right? So in other words, it keeps on traveling. Your spirit keeps on traveling. It says it in those books. A lot of people, they don't believe it, and they have to really go deep into those Sumerian texts and books and just to see what it's about, right? About life. And really in reality, that's what those books were. It was just really in reality, the book of life, how it started for humans, right? So tonight, we're just going to be talking about a little bit about that material, a little bit of science, and what makes up the ancients, the scripture of us, really in reality, of who we are and where we came from, right? Give us a little bit of philosophical, spiritual traditions, just to see, if and how we've existed for thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands of years, because they just found some footprints here that were, in a desert way below the ground over 250,000 years ago, right? So, hello, we go back a long, long way before that. And even that story goes pretty deep. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what and who you really are and what makes you who you are, right? and what makes you different from another person and not a clone of some sort, right? In other words, in this whole world, if you run into somebody might look like you, but they're not you, right? They don't have your memories. They don't have anything like that. You are something different. Each person that has been alive or is alive in this whole world is different from another. In other words, you're not wrapped in some kind of quantum entanglement where every word you speak, somebody else is speaking the exact same word at the same time, right? In other words, it's somewhere in this world. No, it's impossible. Now, quantum entanglement does exist, yes, we know that, but I don't think it exists as another human being as far as yourself being another yourself, right, in another part of the world. In other words, like I'm doing this podcast now, is somebody doing the exact same podcast at the same time, speaking the exact same thing? No, right? So this is what makes you different. And how everything just starts, of course, it starts with the first breath, the breath of life, right? The moment you're born, something extraordinary happens. Your lungs expand. Your heart adapts to the outside womb, right? So when women have babies, you see how the baby is so attached to the mother because they're part of the mother, right? And there's some sort of electricity, right, that activates throughout the nervous system of the baby, of the newborn, right? And you see it all the time. How the baby starts interacting and just, of course, they sleep a lot. We know that. But it's just how things start happening, how they start moving their little fingers. They start moving their toes or their knees. They start bending, even having BMs, or urinating, or just things start firing up, right? Their eyes start blinking. They're moving around. This is the first movements of life, right? And many cultures around the world, have talked about the first breath, and they believe that was the moment that the spirit entered into the body, right? In ancient Hebrew, the text of that word is ruach, right? It means breath, wind, and spirit. In many traditions, the breath and spirit are inseparable. And sometimes not sometimes, but that tells us when consciousness begins and it starts emerging. The networks start to develop, your neural network. In other words, your nerves, everything starts firing up, right? Like a brand new engine that comes out of let's just say a Chevy dealership, right? Brand spanking new, 0 miles, right? But then there's spiritual traditions that suggest that consciousness existed before birth. But that question still remains. Is consciousness created by the brain? Or is the brain just receiving consciousness like a radio receives signals, right? And just our modern science today, our neuroscience today, they really haven't solved that mystery yet. They don't know how the brain works. They don't. They really, really don't how consciousness falls into that category. And that's the strangeness of it all. But first, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back after this message.
something watching.
Alien Strand Podcast.
Metal in the sunshine, then the thunder rolls them back down. I swear I saw windows as behind the vapor and rain. I blink and it's normal, but it never feels the same. Clouds full of secrets, hiding in the white and gray. They wait till we're sleeping to pull us through the Milky Way.
All right, welcome back to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying today's podcast. Be sure to follow us, get us a like and subscribe, man. We really appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying today's content. All right. So we were talking about what makes a human being, right? And what is it that really makes us what we are, right? What elements do we have that will do that, right? And of course, all the human body is, we come from everything and everywhere. In other words, things from the universe, right? And what is the universe is elements, like our periodic table that we have, right? So everything in your body comes from elements forged inside of stars. So when somebody says you're a star child, yeah, pretty much. We are star children, really, in reality. And Carl Sagan famously said, he said, we are made from star stuff. So the human body contains approximately 65% oxygen. It's found in water and our tissues. 18.5% carbon is the backbone of life. 9.5% hydrogen that is present in every water molecule. In other words, our blood has some sort of water material, right? So we do have hydrogen. Nitrogen, 3.2%. And that is critical for our DNA protein. So we do need nitrogen. Calcium, 1.5%. That's, of course, our bones, our teeth. Phosphorus, 1%. That's part of our DNA and cellular energy. Of course, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chloride, magnesium, iron, zinc, and copper. It almost seems like you're reading the back of a vitamin bottle, right? Yeah, pretty much, right? Because you need that. Some people, they don't, as you grow older, you know, these are the nutrients and vitamins that you need to put back in your body, right? Just to stay a little healthier, right? Hey, I take vitamins. I ain't ashamed of it. I'm an older one up there, you know, just like, you know, some folks out there, you know, and you have to. It's just one of those things. Copper as well, right? So all these elements together create every organ, every thought, every memory, every emotion in our body. And every atom in your body is born inside of an ancient star that exploded billions and billions of years ago, if you think about it. It's pretty real, like, scientific, you know, kind of sense of it. And you are made of the universe itself. And of course, within ourselves, we have a code, which is the code of life, which is inside every cell of our DNA, right? And it's the blueprint of our life. So all of us humans possess approximately 3.2 billion base pairs and around 20,000 protein coding genes and 23 chromosome pairs. And it's stretched from end to end. The DNA inside your body would reach billions of miles if you put it all together, right? Our DNA is passed through generation and generation. And every ancestor that has been before you and has survived to the new genetic code that you can carry today, right? So in other words, it starts changing and forming as it goes. So when I talked about this on a prior podcast, I talked that the human DNA first strand was 9.6 billion years ago. But Earth wasn't created till 4.2 billion, right? So the DNA, our DNA goes way past that. So it kind of puts that in a little bit of a scientific analogy, so you can kind of figure out, okay, so our DNA was created 9.6 billion years ago, but Earth was created 4.2. So that just tells you how old our DNA is. So in other words, we came from somewhere else, all put together here. And your DNA contains biological memories as well, stretching back millions of years from your earliest ancestors of humanity, right? So, they say that about 6 to 7 million years ago, the common ancestors shared with chimpanzees, right? But I don't believe that. The only reason why is because their DNA and blood is totally different than ours. It has not one strand of human DNA within apes or chimpanzees, right? But Homo habilis, they were around 2.4 million years ago. Homo erectus was about 1.9 million years ago. And Homo sapiens approximately 300,000 years ago. So they've kind of moved that number up a little bit. So scientists kind of look at humans that we've evolved through some sort of a natural selection of things, right? So in other words, this is how they figure, only because of the skulls that they found and how the changes were being made. But I think I saw a recent find in Mexico that they were digging, and they actually found like Homo erectus in Mexico. And they weren't supposed to be there yet. So how did they get there, right? This is what I talked about, how ancient civilizations have been here way before us. But as they dug down, they started finding human bones, right? Spearheads. So how does that happen? That's the question that things are just coming out all the time as they dig deeper and deeper, right? But our ancient traditions, they just kind of tell another story about creation and beings from the heavens, right? And those ancient traditions, a lot of times the people will start at the Sumerian tablets, right? So we're in ancient Mesopotamia, which is modern Iraq. Today, this is the area where they believe that the Sumerians created one of humanity's earliest civilizations, right? And these tablets, they describe like gods or these beings that they call Anunnaki. right? And we all have heard it over and over. What the Anunnaki means, it means those who came from heaven to earth, right? So there was a famous passage from Arthurus' epic, right? So it describes humanity and creation, right? And it kind of reads, this is going to sound kind of a little strange, but it says, let man bear the workload of gods, right? So in the Sumerian mythology, humans were fashioned as to perform labor, right? And to maintain civilization. Some modern authors, they claim that stories describe extraterrestrial genetic engineering. However, the mainstream historians and archaeologists do not support this interpretation. The tablets themselves explicitly describe aliens, extraterrestrials, right? So they talk about divine beings according to their religions and their worldview at that time, right? And they say that there was another famous passage that describes a great flood by the gods, which that flood predates biblical accounts of Noah, right? In other words, did this happen twice? Or did the story of Noah come from this book? And I'm leaving this an open thought process, right? It's just an open discussion for you guys to think about, right? I'm not saying that this came first, the chicken or the egg, which one? No, it's just explaining what these books are pretty much saying. They conflict each other, yes. And many of these scholars, they kind of go with the flood narratives, right, and have drawn away from earlier Mesopotamian traditions. In other words, that they believe that the Sumerians were connected directly to the divine realm, right? In other words, humans existed between heaven and earth, and there was like a bridge of some sort of a physical and spiritual existence, right? And I see that. That's what the Sumerian text talked about over and over and over. And why not, right? Why not? I mean, a lot of these books, these historical books, were written 2,000, 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. Even the book of Enoch was before the Bible, right? And these are the things that we have to consider a concept of the beginning of man and the beginning of humans, right? And where it all started. There's always going to be a story of the beginning point of interest, right? Which is human beings. When did it start and how did it start? And did something mess up along the way and it got erased? In other words, something like a great flood, some catastrophic meteor hit, like it wiped away the dinosaurs. Something happened that changed, right? So if it changed, that means we had to start all over. Or did some survive? Were some able to survive before that, right? So you got to remember, the world did not have as many people as there is today. Didn't have none. We have really taken over this planet with people. There's a lot of people. Not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying you got to remember, a lot of these places were untouched. So if something catastrophic happened, that means that maybe these people hid away somewhere and nobody knew who they were, what they were. But before we go any further, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back after this message.
Alien Strand Podcast.
Welcome back to the show. All right, I hope you guys are enjoying today's content as much as I am. Yeah. Remember to hit us a like and subscribe. I hope you guys are enjoying everything like that. Join us on Patreon. Join for free Alien Strand Podcast. All right. So as we were talking about the Sumerians, right, and how their book starts off, and how human beings have been going through all these through those years, and how the possibility that the Sumerian books were about extraterrestrials, right? So, and that's a possibility. That is a strong possibility that that's what that is, right? It gives those notions of it, right? So let's just drop into the book of Enoch real quick. So, and that was one of the most ancient books that was ever discovered, right? Which is the book of Enoch, right? So, and it was attributed that Enoch was the great-grandfather of Noah, right? Though they did not put him in the biblical book, right, of the Bible, of Judaism, right, and Christianity, because he was a part of it, but they kind of figured that his writings were a little too deep and dark, right? So, yeah, I guess they didn't want to scare the crap out of people, but at the same time, you got the book of Revelation. Read that one. Yeah, that one will scare the crap out of you anyway. But there's a lot of famous passages, of course, that everyone talks about, especially on ancient aliens and all these documentaries, everything out there that you watch and listen to, even on your social media, right? There's a famous passage on there that says, "And the angels and the children of heaven saw and lusted after them." And so it describes a group called the Watchers, right? And these were like heavenly beings, right, that descended to earth at the time. But yet there's another passage that says they took the wives unto themselves. But the book of Enoch describes the Watchers as teaching humanity. See, this is what people don't understand. What they were teaching was astronomy, sorcery, weapon making, metallurgy. They were showing humans this, right? And so their offspring became the Nephilim, which we hear about over and over and over. There were giants described as powerful beings that spread corruption across the earth. In other words, they weren't good. They were bad. And so many researchers have connected a lot of these stories and myths into like a lot of ancient civilizations, right? Some have interpreted the Watchers, and I have interpreted that way as well, as angels, right? And this is what we thought they were. But if they were, then why were they so evil, which their offspring was? And others suggest that they may have been interacting just with humanity, right? So the text never specifically uses modern extraterrestrials, right, in their terminology as far as the Book of Enoch. But it does describe beings that are descending from the heavens, and they show knowledge of mankind, right? And this is why the remains of the Book of Enoch still continues to fascinate researchers today. They're still digging to that book, and they try to figure out, okay, man, what was this guy saying? And I read it. Believe me, I read it through, and it's pretty deep and dark sometimes, but it kind of repeats itself a little bit over and over. And it's a great book still. I mean, to kind of put your brain in there for a little bit, and it does explain things, and it tells you if you're a bad person, this will happen and that will happen, and it just kind of points you to the direction of to be a good person, basically, right? So what book tells you that as well? You know, we already know which one that is, right? So we move through the spirit of life, right? What is the spirit of life? So as we're moving through life, our bodies change. A lot of our cells are replaced. Some of our atoms come and go. Our memories fade. Yet something still remains, right? The feeling of I, me, myself, the observer, the witness. And our consciousness that is experiencing our reality of where we're at here today, right? And many spiritual traditions, sometimes they argue that the observer, right, which is you, is the soul, the spirit, the eternal self. Many near-death NDEs have reported worldwide that contain similar themes. In other words, they see themselves leaving the body, traveling through darkness, encountering light, feeling of overwhelming peace, reviewing life experiences. In other words, like playing the tape backwards again, or rewind, right? Or the CD, or whatever you want to call. Rewind and press play again, right? So you get to see these things again. And many scientists today, they're still continue to investigate these reports, and they still cannot find no explanation. Still today, right? And yet the consistency of these accounts still remain, intriguing to us, right? Because it's like, wow, man, I wonder what they saw. What did you see? And once they start explaining, have you ever been around somebody that has had an NDE, or somebody that has been down, or maybe in a coma, or have passed and came back after a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? You're waiting to ask them that question. What did you see? Some people say, I saw nothing. But many say, I saw a light. This is what I saw. This is what I experienced. I walked with past loved ones. I saw them. They pulled me in. They sent me back. They told me to help people. They told me to be a better person. They changed me, right? Many people that have NDEs and come back become a changed person. Whether they were in a dark or their spirit was in a dark place before, when they come back, they're in a better spirit. And they're thankful for living in the consciousness and living in the now and experiencing everything that they have with their families, friends, loved ones, pets, everything, right? So they don't take nothing for granted. And as we shouldn't, right? And what happens when we die? Scientists believe that our heart stops, our brain activity ceases, our cells begin to break down, the elements return to the earth, right? But what about our consciousness? Where does that go? Some people think that consciousness ends when the brain ceases, right? Functioning, right? And your experience just stops. It ends up there. It's over. It's black. It's done. These are materialists. Spiritual people say consciousness survives in physical death, and the soul continues into the other realm. Reincarnation is consciousness that returns into another life. A belief found in numerous traditions. In other words, the Hindu, the Indians, they do believe in reincarnation. I've seen it. I've seen videos of it where people come back. They were somebody else. They know where they were buried. They remember life. But only as children experience this. It fades because then they get theirs back and they begin to live a new life. And they lose everything that they brought with them when they came into this world of reincarnation. Or do we have cosmic consciousness, right? Some philosophers suggest that consciousness rejoins with the universal field of awareness, returning to the source from which it emerged. In other words, we're with the universe, we're with everything, right? Quantum theories, researchers have speculated that consciousness may involve quantum processes, right? Throughout all these ideas that they are highly speculative, and they're unproven in reality. So, scientifically thinking, they can't figure it out. I'm going to tell you that right now. They cannot figure it out. Our souls, our spirits, they cannot see it and they cannot figure it out. And no one really knows for certainty, really, in reality. And perhaps that's the mystery of us being humans, right? We will only know ourselves when we leave this world, right? And we can honestly look at each other or ourselves as something extraordinary, really, in reality. Why? Because we're made of stardust. We're programmed by DNA. We're built from ancient elements. And we're connected to a history stretching hundreds and thousands of years, even millions if possible. And yet, we dream, we love, we create, and we question our existence. The atoms in our bodies may come from ancient stars, but the mystery of consciousness still remains unsolved. Whether our spirit is eternal or our consciousness survives, or whether we journey beyond this world, the answers still await us all. But until then, we'll just continue on searching. We'll continue on asking questions. And we'll continue on exploring the great mystery of it all, really, in reality. Of what it means to be human. And that's the whole big picture of it. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast as much as I did. It was a great one. I loved it, man. I hope you guys did too. Teaches you a little bit about humanity, where we come from, our DNA, what it's made out of, molecules, everything like that, right? Kind of gets you wondering And then what happens to us after we go, right? So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Share this podcast with as many people as you can. If you really enjoyed it, if you can learn something from it, or if somebody wants to listen to it, it'd be something great for them to listen to, right? You can catch us on 26, 28 platforms of audio: Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Amazon Music, iTunes, you name it. Alien Strand Podcast is on there. Don't forget to follow us on Patreon. I'll be having some new t-shirts going to be coming out with the new logo. It's going to be amazing, man. It'll be nice shirts. You guys can, if you guys become a $5 a month, if you get picked for that week, I'm going to send you a free t-shirt. I did that with Alien Strand. When Alien Strand first started out, I started giving away t-shirts everywhere. And guess what? I'm going to do it again. Yes, but for Patreon only. So please join us on Patreon. $5 a month. I'll get one. I'm going to give one a week to a lucky person. All right. So if you join for $5 a month, you're going to get a shirt. You might get a shirt. I might be generous and give maybe two. We'll find out. All right, guys. It's just my thanks, my way of saying thank you to everybody for listening to Alien Strand Podcast. Thank you guys for just enjoying and listening to today's message and episode about spiritual and the connection that we have with everything. Right. All right. Until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
Signal in the static, cold voice through the dark, names on the blacklist, scratched into the arc. Dust on the tape deck, late night lone desk lamp, coffee stains, old case files, maps full of pinhole stamps, footsteps in the hallway, but you live here alone. You press play anyway, let the unknown speak through the tone.
Alien Strand Podcast. You want to learn about CE5 and extraterrestrial contact? Download my new book, now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, and 14 other platforms. Book authored by Donald Ledesma. CE5, Frequencies of Contact.